last two items we can detail here are going to be our submaterials and our group members. To detail submaterials, again, from your modeling window or drawing editor window, under your process pull down, you have detail submaterial and detail member groups. You also have the same items here. For the yellow box is detail submaterial, and the red box that's subdivided is going to be your member groups. For detail submaterials, it'll come up and list all of the submaterials in this list. This list contains all the submaterials in your model, including main materials. Some customers do not prefer to detail the individual part drawings for main materials of members. What you can do with this list is there are ways to sort and hide items in it. So if I go down to the lower right, there's a button that says Hide. If I click Hide, I have different ways of hiding the items in this list. I can see specific material types only, material only in specific sequences, or zones. Now this is a hide window, so anything selected will be hidden in your list. So I could start by trying to hide all my wide flange and say OK. And it's going to turn off all my wide flange sizes in this list. But I may have more than just wide flanges as main materials. So if I were to go to my category miscellaneous, I'm going to clear this so nothing is selected from here. But in my category miscellaneous, I have main material that I can check on. So I can check on this and it'll hide anything that is a main material from my list. So now this is only attached submaterial and nothing that is a main material on a member anywhere. If you're a shop that does not detail the main materials of your members, this is how you would not have to detail those for your submaterial drawings. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it set so that my main materials are not detailed and just say OK to this. Again, I have my settings which are saved from the detailing defaults, and I have templates turned off and I have shortened drawings turned on. And I'll say OK. And it's going to go through and detail all of my submaterial. So once that's done, again, I can go into my drawing editor, and in my submaterial option, in my list, I can see all of my submaterials listed here. If I go ahead and open some of my submaterials, I'll see that I have my individual part drawings for each part in my model. I go through all my angles. I'm using my arrow key here just to jump through all the different angles. I can also just open and say I want to look at some of my plates. Let's look at P10. Here's a gusset plate dimensioned here for me. A submaterial part does not have a bill of material, so using BB on my keyboard does nothing. But I do have the description for it called out here in the title. I have a PL 3/8 by 24 5/8 by 2 foot O and 5/8, P10. So if you remember, we have our options to list the members that the submaterial are on. So if I were to come into my options and go to my fabricator options, member and material piece marking options, under submaterial, I can come down and say show member marks and quantities on submaterial details. If I were to open this just back to my main view here and go to my detail submaterial, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my hide options, and I'm going to hide my main material again. And I'm just going to select everything to redetail. Once that's done, if I go back into my submaterial here, you can see that I have the members that that piece is on listed below the title. So I can have my submaterial detailed with the members on it that way. Later on, when we talk about our sheets and creating our outlines, we'll talk about another tool called tables that we can use to put reports on that will report that information in a table on the sheet instead of putting it on the title here if you don't like that. For our detail member groups, I have my detail member groups here in my main menu as well as in the modeling window like we showed. And I'm going to have my group members listed here. If I go ahead and select my group members, I can look at my settings here. I'm just going to uncheck my detail using templates and say OK. It's going to go through and detail my group member for me. Once detailed, in Drawing Editor, that group member will show up just in the normal details list under my GM128. You can see that I have my group member detail. The group members will only be able to dimension the main member's main view on that detail. So any other dimensions to other items on that drawing will have to be added by you. But you can see I have the bill of material. There's all the materials on that group. I also have the ability to turn on and off piece marks and labels added to that drawing, and also modify the way that that bill is organized. To do that, if I go back into my model with my group members, I need to edit the group member in the model, and I can turn on these options here in the member edit window. So I can show member marks on details, submaterial marks on details, show section sizes on details, and then I have an option to organize bill of material by submember piece mark. So if I were to say organize BOM by submember and show member marks on detail, now if I were to go and I need to go ahead and get out of this drawing so I'm not in it, and if I detail my members again, and reopen my drawing, you'll see that I have the members called out here on my drawing, and in my bill of material I have them split by the submember piece marks. For the submembers, these can still be detailed as individual members in SDS2. If I wanted to have all these submembers also detailed so I can put them on a sheet individually and just have this be some sort of like an assembly drawing, I could have everything detailed for my members by going to my member detail, either from the icon here or in my process pull down, detail members, and if you remember, I would just check on the submember checkbox and then detail those as submembers. Now, if I go back to my drawing editor, when I go to open drawings, under my details, I have submembers where I can open the submember details for these members. So I can place these submember details on sheets when we get to that point with my group member on the same sheet if I wanted to. But these submembers are always going to be in a separate list than the normal details, since the group member bill of material will typically always contain the material for those members. This just keeps them in a separate list so you don't get duplicate materials on accident by loading them all at the same time without realizing it. Lastly, I have the option for detail views. Detail views are an item we can create in a drawing to enlarge a specific area of a detail. If it's too busy or we need more clarification, we can do that. So let's open up one of my drawings here, just B4. I'm going to unshorten it, and let's say I wanted to add a detail view of this end to show something in more clarity or at a larger scale. What I can do is go into my Objects pull down, go to Detail Views, and select Add. It asks me to add a detail view, and I can locate a window where I want that detail view to be of. I will get the information here to the annotation name, the callout prefix for the original area attribute, so this original area gets labeled. Do I want to add a frame around that area? Do I want the frame to be solid, dashed? Do I want leader placement default or interactive via like label combo where I can pick where I want it to be? The frame color, as well as the detail view area. When I place the detail view, what do I want the callout prefix for the detail area to be called? Do I want to add the name of the creating drawing to the callout? Do I want to scale labels? What's my default scale for that area? Do I want to add a frame to that area? What type of frame do I want? Dashed, etc. And the checkbox here to auto update, that'll update anytime the member gets redetailed. So I'm going to go ahead and change my scale here to 3 times the original. I'm just going to leave it the way it is here for now and say OK. And it's asking me to place that detail view. So you can see that it places the box around that detail with the abbreviation DET left end. And I place this detail view that says detail of left end. And the scale is 3 times, but the labels were not scaled, so the labels are all the same size, just the drawing gets larger. So once I create that detail view, I need to save so that it saves this with the detail view on it. And then I can go to the File, Open Detail View Drawing, and it has the B4 left end name. And this is the drawing for that detail view. So if I came in here and just deleted some of this stuff, and I wanted to dimension this more specifically, I'll use my auto point here. And I'm just picking a few points just to get some dimensions in. And if I save this and go open back to my B4, you will see that my detail view now has that information changed in it, but my main detail does not. So by default, that detail view will be just a direct duplicate of the actual detail, but it's a separate drawing that you can go modify and update directly. At any point, if I were to edit this, I have the options to synchronize. Synchronize will match the detail view to whatever the current detail shows within that window. So if I had modified this, and I had this elevation here, if I go ahead and kind of drag that up a bit, let's say I move this out as well. And I modified it. If I were to edit this and say synchronize, it's going to update to exactly what I modified in this drawing at this scale. So if I add the name of the creating drawing to call out and say OK, it's going to add the name of whatever the drawing is that created this left end detail. The reason this is done is because I can hit save here and go to open, and I have detail views for my details. I can have this information, I can add this to multiple sheets if I wanted to. This detail view can be placed on multiple sheets, and it'll reference the name of the drawing that it was created in. You can also create these in erection views. If I want to look at my erection view detail views, I could go to my erection views. Let's say I want to go to my MES, and I have a section here that I want to call out very closely. Maybe I want to look at these grading callouts. I'm going to come in here and just say Objects, Detail Views, Add, Window, this area right here. I'm just going to call this Grading. I'm going to add name. I'm going to call this scale 0.25. So while I'm in here, there is a show on original drawing which I can uncheck, which will not show where I place this on this drawing. So if I say OK, I still place the detail view, but it's not going to actually show it on this drawing. So I can say that this is a detail grading. And now if I go into my erection views, I'll hit yes to save. Go to detail views, I have MES grading. So I can come in here and I can use my tools, eView cleanup, edit several. Let's just say I want to hide piece marks, section sizes, any end elevations for any of these member types. Just grab all these and say OK and turn all those off. And I also want to change all of these member styles. I'm not going to modify any more piece marks here. Let's go member style. I want to be wire. So I'll window this group of members and materials here. Update that all to wires. And I'll go ahead and just say save. And now I have a separate drawing for the MES grading on my detail views that I have separate from my MES detail. So I can put this on a sheet and it says detail grading. I can add that detail to another sheet or to the same sheet as a separate drawing. I don't have to show it on this detail. But if I did, I said show on original drawing, it should place it over here to the right where I located it, and now I can see that my detail grading from MES has the information here shown with these cutouts around it. So this can be used for detail views of connections. If you have a specific connection you need to show. If you were looking at grid line 3 and I want to look at, I'll save that. If I look at grid line 3 and I want to show some of this or a connection detail for the bracing, but I don't want to change everything to solid in this view, I can create a detail view here. And I'll call this brace con. We'll make this 0.25, add the name of the creating drawing. I'll hit save, and I can go to File, open the detail view for this. I can grab the beam and the girt and the brace and the column. I can edit, change this to wire, and I have my connections here. And so I can also use the same eView cleanup if I wanted to. Edit several. Let's say I want to hide piece marks really quick here. And let's hide our stick lines. If I say hide for the stick line here on the visibility, and just right click and say OK again, it should turn off all those stick lines for me. I can just close that. And then I have this detail. I could add any notes, weld information, whatever I wanted to on this. Hit save. If I go back to my grid line 3, now I have this brace con detail for that specific area without having to make everything solid or wire in that connection. Again, this detail view can be placed on other drawings as well. When we go to place drawings on our sheets, we'll look at that. I can place this detail view on another sheet or the same sheet, just not have to make it visible on this view as well. I'll save that view. The next video, we'll go ahead and talk about creating our sheet outlines and loading our sheets for all of our erection view details, member details, and submaterial details, as well as looking at the piece mark changes for loading those members onto a sheet, and what options we have to update those piece marks to our sheet marks. We'll also talk about some other commands as far as search and replace, adding items to multiple sheets at a time, and some basic revision options for the revision charts and bill of materials.